Good morning, ma'am. Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning, sir.
Yeah, so should I start now?
Yes, sir. Just I will introduce yourself and then
Okay,
you
no
may
problem.
start. Uh, on behalf of Department of IT SST CBLI, welcome Dr. Sandeep Kumar Garg, sir. He is currently working as Associate Professor in Computer Science Department at IIT Roorkee. His research areas are machine learning, artificial intelligence, software engineering, also data analytics. So, sir, I welcome you to this session on data analytics and visualization tools. And thank you, sir, for accepting my invitation and giving a talk in this session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, so actually it's an opportunity these days through this Atal Academy that throughout the India a lot of courses are being organized, and due to this virtual talk we are able to at least interact with so many faculty members. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Bagga. Yeah, so today we will discuss about basically that data visualization and more or less on the data science. And I hope all the participants have joined and I can start. Yeah, Dr. Jaspal Bagga is putting some message regarding the welcome to the participants. And I hope that you will enjoy in this
Yes, sir,
discussion.
definitely.
Yeah, so I am sharing my screen. Yes. So is so I hope my screen is visible to you. Can
Yes, sir,
anybody?
it is visible.
Okay, okay, great. Okay, so as far as today's discussion is concerned, you are attending this course since I think 3 days, and all of you are basically now by now or even before joining this course must have been having the knowledge of data science and machine learning, right? So as far as that today's discussion is concerned, as all of us are faculty members, so I feel that in Atal courses mostly faculty members are joining, right? So it will be very as you are already knowing the basics, already you are using the different tools as well as guiding the students, right? So from that perspective, if I thought to discuss something with you, like I firstly I will say it's not a lecture. Through this virtual platform all of us are interacting and trying to discuss so much things, so many different perspectives of data science. And if even if you are from not from computer science and engineering, even then you will feel that in all the different areas of engineering, science, and even art, that data science is finding a lot of usefulness. So from that perspective only I would like to try to discuss the things about data science. And normally these days, as there is a lot of initiatives of government of India regarding the Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India initiative, as well as the digitization of different activities, and this is happening since many years in the at the government level also, that more or less most of the activities are being digitized, that you can see in our day-to-day activities. So I will spend first few minutes on discussing that how the data science can be useful from those perspectives. And mostly in my lectures these days, initially for 5-10 minutes, I try to correlate the corresponding area with these initiatives of Digital India. And some of the participants, if you have attended my other lectures, then you might be aware that I normally try to correlate these things with these practical implications, right? So these are some of the resources that I have referred for these slides as well as for my discussion. So firstly, one thing, right? So if you have attended my talk, some initial topics of 5-10 minutes you might have to like you might find it repetitive, and you will be recalling those topics very easily. Then I will discuss these topics from the perspective of data science, and you will see that mostly the digitization, the digital India perspective, or the digitization, like digital India is specific to our country, but more or less the concepts of digitization, whatever, like it is digital India, or I will say digital country, or it is digital universe, or I will say digital world, whatever is the scenario, the concepts, the basic concepts are almost same. So I try to discuss these from the perspective of India, our country, but you can correlate it, you can easily correlate it with the similar scenarios in your problems, in your different type of analysis that you might be doing for different countries, or for different cities, or for different states, right? So one thing that is normally emphasized, even if whatever is the area of your research, it is security, it is machine learning, it is data science, data analytics, ICT based development, or artificial intelligence, or data analytics, or even in management perspective, if you are doing some research in IT systems, in all these area, and throughout, if I will say, the softwares, then one thing is really common in all these areas, right? I normally try to be interactive in the talks, but normally, as I see in some of the previous lectures, many times it is a little bit like interrupting if I am asking some questions. Like it's not normally questions, it's normally the interaction. So I am trying to avoid that, but it's normally an habit for me to like discuss with the participants and discuss in the class. So that's a general habit, as might be there for all the teachers in that are attending the course. So basically, what you can see, what is common in all these topics that I have specified for any of the digitization activity, either it is machine learning, or it is data analysis, data science, or your IT systems, or cyber security, or network security, or information security. What is common in all these things? You will find that one thing is very common among all these activities, right? What is that thing, right? You can see that one of the important thing, and even like I will say, that is existing even before these concepts were there, and I will say that is the origination of these concepts, that is software. Whatever we are trying to discuss in data science, mostly whatever in cyber security, most of the time, whatever in data analytics, whatever in ICT based development, mostly all these are oriented to the different characteristics, different features of softwares. Right? Most of the time we are talking about those. Our research is oriented to the different features and characteristics of the softwares, right? So that's why in initial 5 to 10 minutes, I will try to discuss with all of you that what is the role of these softwares, or type of the softwares that we are handling, or that we have to handle in any digitized society, right? And then corresponding to that, you can find a lot of research areas corresponding to the data science that you can handle with reference to the digitization process, and that will automatically give you an indication of the different application domains which are of interest to the society in large, and specifically to India, as well as some ready-made problems might happen in your mind when we are discussing all these things. So one thing is very much clear from my perspective, that most of the time after the discussion you might not be having a lot of answers, but you will be having a lot of questions, open problems that you should try to explore, that you should try to discuss with your students, that you should try to work upon for the research projects, for the class projects, for the undergraduate or postgraduate projects. So that is the overall scenario that I really feel that happens after the class is over, after the discussion is over, right? And normally That is the takeaway from the discussions most of the time. So if you will look upon the software, then if you will see in the current scenario, to have the software to be very useful to the end user, normally most of the time that software has to be integrated with the hardware. Many a times the hardware is controlled with the help of that software, but at least that software has to be deployed on some hardware. That is the minimal thing that we have to do, right? So in all these cases you will see that with the time, as the time, like if you will see the inception of computer science or then inception of softwares, then with the time the importance of software, the role of software in any consumer device, in any consumer activity, or I will say any client activity from the computer science point of view, from the end user's perspective, the role of software is increasing. Day by day, the automation of the activities, the automation of even the industrial processes are happening. So even when about 20 years back, for those processes where it was completely mechanized, we were not even able to think about the automation of the activities or digitization of the activities. Even currently, it is explored for its digitization. People, the researchers, the industrial managers, they are trying to see what type of benefit we can find by digitizing that type of activity. So from that perspective, the new terminology is now happening and is now even documented in some standards like ISO and all that. That is software intensive systems, SIS, right? So firstly, I will try to discuss that within 5 minutes about the SIS and that how the SIS is useful in digital India and how it is related to your data science perspective, how it is related to the research in data science, right? And then from these we should be able to find out some good projects that we can discuss, that we can explore for our further works after you are like joining your institutes full time after attending these courses. So quickly I will go through about the digitizations in India, digital India, right? And then I will discuss the corresponding topics in data science, right? So if you look upon, if you can see on my slide, then if I have taken all these things directly from the Digital India website, so it is verbatim copied from that website, and you can see that the vision of Digital India. In the vision of Digital India, you can see the vision of Digital India program is to transform India into a digitally empowered society and knowledge economy. So as is very much clear from this vision, there are few there are few keywords that you can fetch out. One is society, second is knowledge economy, right? Economy is a very bigger perspective as far as any country is concerned, and the economy of any country is highly dependent upon the different perspectives, different type of activities, different type of commercial activities, or the even the local activities happening in the country. So the Digital India vision is not only putting up the emphasis on the empowered society, but also on the economy. So it should be helpful to have the digitally empowered society. So that means that whatever activities we are doing under the Digital India perspective, it should be empowering the society, it should be helpful to the society, and it should also be helping the economy. Right? That is the overall vision. And that is even happening when you are talking about the smart city culture. Like I am trying to explore the things in width. Like if you have seen the definition of smart city from IEEE perspective, right? Even like a smart city concept in India is happening and a lot of work is being done. But if the definition of smart city or smart systems is searched out, it's not so new. It was there when AI was happening, even in the era of computer science, in this computer science area. So even at that time, if you will see the concept of smart city or smart systems, then it is said that there are some keywords in that definition, that whatever you are doing for the digitization of that city or that system, it should be for the betterment and improvement in the lifestyle of citizens of that country or citizens of that city, right? So like whatever you are doing, it should be helpful to them, it should be able to improve their lifestyle, it should be able to improve their working culture, but not to make it more difficult, right? That should be understood. So that's why there is always limitation on the digitization also. Like if you are digitizing something, if I am talking in the term of computer science and software engineering, work and cost benefit analysis of any work, then all these things should take care of that what will be the impact of your digitization on the society, whether the society is ripe, market is ripe for taking that digitization, whether it is ready, or we should do it now or should not do it now, right? So that is one important thing. So if you will look upon the that is happening, that is even applicable in any area. Like if I'm not talking even about the this machine learning and data science, if I'm talking about the security, even in that case it is really important to see the cost benefit analysis, and the people working in the cyber security is aware of that, that we should see that what cost will be there for providing the security, and what can be the loss if the security is not provided. Same thing is happening in on all the areas, and should happen in my opinion, that if you are working in data science, then if many a times you will find that you are writing some project, and then you are talking to the panel, and the panel is saying that why you want to apply data science here, what is the need of applying the machine learning here, the data is not so large, you can easily do the analysis manually, what is the use of data science here, how it will be helpful. So that is always very important to be very concrete, that when you are applying the data science or machine learning or these areas on AI, then you should be very much clear that what benefit you are achieving by doing this, and what will be the cost of applying these. So that is really important, right? So I hope you are able to understand what I want to convey. So if you will look upon the vision of digital India, then if you will look upon the vision areas of digital India, then you can see from the screen, we can explore it always. Like one is infrastructure, second is related to governance, and third is digital empowerment of citizens. So there are different aspects related to that I would like to explore. So as you can see from the screen, I am at slide number 5. Then there are some digital India pillars, right? So one thing, like if I am assuming that everybody is able to see my screen and is able to hear my voice. If somebody is not able to hear, or in between there is any problem, then you can tell me, right? You can tell me, inform me. So as far as these digital India pillars are concerned, then broadly there are 9 pillars which are documented on Digital India program, right? And in each of the area you will find the scope for data science. Very easily you can find it, right? And I will discuss one by one. Very briefly I am going to cover it, because it is just an indication that you have to explore. Like one is broadband highways. So broadband high, like one thing is very important to understand, that all these pillars, all these applications are very much related to each other. If I am thinking about the one and ignoring the other, then it is very difficult to do that, right? Because ultimately they are participating in an overall vision of digitization of a country, digitization of a city, right? So you can see that one objective initially we are always thinking, I'm trying to correlate it. Initially it is broadband for all, broadband for urban as well as rural, right? And then we are putting up the emphasis on national information infrastructure, and NCAN is one of the part of that infrastructure, National Knowledge Network. Most of the government institutes, or I think the central government institutes are having the NCAN facility, through which all are connected through the network, right? So in these cases, basically one thing we need to understand, that this is one of the objective through which the broadband connectivity to the rural areas and urban areas is to be spread out. Even there was one of the document that was shared with even us, to put up some advice or put up some comments on the broadband vision. By broadband forum it was shared that this is the overall plan of putting up the broadband highways in the country. So these are very interesting things that you can read upon. Another is universal access to mobile connectivity. This is very well known, everybody is knowing that, and this has really revolutionized in the last decade, right? And the reachability of the mobile is now to very common people as well, right? And this has further helped us in the data science. Like you can see that nowadays most of the applications that we are assuming in data science, using TensorFlow and all these applications, we want to deliver it through the smartphones. And even you will see that further when I will discuss some objectives, then it is also one of the objective of Digital India, that as far as possible try to disseminate the information and initiatives through the smartphones. So that's why one thing when we are doing the research in this area, in the data science area, or we are building any application using machine learning, one thing is that if it is for common people, then one should have it in the form of an smartphone based application, in addition to web based application if you are having, because the reachability of smartphone is much wider than the laptop and all these things. Even if you will see the internet accessibility or internet reachability, connectivity to the common people, it is mostly through the smartphone, right? So that's why nowadays the work in TensorFlow is very much in the area of data science, very much increased, and people are doing to work to develop the lightweight applications. Like if you are applying some algorithms in machine learning and data is very large, then normally the computational time is very large if we are thinking about its application for a common people. And in those cases, normally if you are talking about the internet connectivity through those devices, it might not be so much fast, and even in good smartphones it might not be so much fast that it can give you a very good response time. So to handle those issues, and even to save the energy and resources, computational resources as well, we have to do work on lightweight algorithms, which are and they are lightweight implementations. So these are increased by these topics that I have specified to you, right? So another is public internet access program, common service centers, and you can explore this initiative in which CSCs are established at Gram Panchayat level, and through these a lot of information is captured, a lot of initiatives are disseminated. And again, through these initiatives, even nowadays, it is possible to collect a lot of data, to do a lot of planning based on that data, even from the Gram Panchayat level, right? So that is feasible. So that again have really helped to do our research work and to develop the applications which you can directly develop to, like as of now there might not be so much data. Even that data initiative is also there by Government of India to prepare the government data, Indian data set. So that is possible only through these type of initiatives. Then we will be directly able to work upon the Indian data and to do the data analytics, data science applications, machine learning applications on this type of data. So many times you might have felt that when you are applying for any project, or when you are publishing or doing PhD and presenting your work, you are using the data from the USA or other country, right? Then the general question is, if this work is only applicable to that country, it might not be good for the India. Or you might remember, one second. you might remember one thing. If you are in the area of computer science research since 10 years, then about 10 years back, a very common question to the researchers working in the area of developing some applications in image processing or data science which are using the smartphones, it was a very common question to those researchers in some presentations or in some viva, that your application requires the use of mobile phone, smartphone, but smartphone is not there to everyone. A farmer is not having the smartphone, right? That was the common question. And many a times the student or the researchers are like puzzled what should be the answer, because at that time that was not the scenario. But many a times the students or the people were answering that yeah, it's okay that nowadays it might not be that scenario, but we really feel that in very near future these works will be useful, and the smartphones will be accessible, it will be within the reach of the common people. And nowadays that question is not there. You can imagine that scenario very easily, because everybody is now saying that yes, even like everybody is having smartphone nowadays. Most of the people, not everybody, most of the people or whoever want to use this technology, that is under the affordable capability of that person, and they are very easy to use. So that's why we can imagine that those initiatives at that time have used these days, and these new initiatives will give you a lot of good data in the future that can help you in participating in the planning of some initiatives, in decision making of these initiatives, and getting some new insight from this data. That is the basic objective of data science. Even if you will even look upon the formal definition of data science, that is the most important objective of data science, right? So another is like e-governance. So if you will look upon the e-governance, basically through these one by one these initiative, I am trying to tell you the applications in these areas of data science. So that can really help you if you are working even in theoretical aspects of the data science, that can very easily help you to find their application and then work upon. If you are working in the practical implications of data science, even in those cases, these applications can help you to have a case study and then represent the applications users of your work, right? Like form simplification, field reduction, online application and tracking, online repositories, right? So online repositories are quite famous these days. One of the ambitious initiative of government, that certificates, educational degrees, identity documents, all these will be put in online repositories. So again, when this is put up in the online repositories, a lot of aspects of security as well as data science will come into picture, and integration of services like UIDI, Aadhaar, payment gateway, mobile seva platform. So many decisions through this data are possible at the end of planners and the government when they have a common data platform. One thing you might be knowing, that like there was one of the initiative related to like digitization of the pages of all sculptures of India or all documents of India, very traditional knowledge of India. So in that initiative as well, a lot of work is happening these days related to machine learning and data science. Like some data is, I think, available, and some sample data is available. So from that, capturing from the images, capturing the text and all these things, that is really happening to provide the searchability to these images, to provide the indexing to those images which are generated in the digital form from the Indian traditional documents. So that's again a very good application. So in this way, when you will explore these points, then you will find many good applications corresponding to your research area in broadly in this area of data science, machine learning, security, and all these things. Then if you look upon eKranti, this is one of the initiative that is including many other small initiatives, right? But very effectful, very effective initiatives, like integrated services is the main objective. Like that's why you might have seen some common gateways, right, where the a set of services corresponding to one type of work is provided through that gateway only to the citizens. Then IT infrastructure on demand, more or less related to cloud, then cloud by default, mobile first. As I said, that the basic objective is to provide the facilities through smartphone at the first level, and then it might be available through some web applications or portals. Language localization, right? In language localization also a lot of automatic work in the NLP can be helpful, and that again is using the concepts of machine learning. National GIS security and electronic data preservation, right? So like there are so many things where data science is always useful, right? Social media engagement of government, open data platform, as I was saying, that this is to boost the data science research in India. Basically, open data platform, this is one of very ambitious project, and I think a flagship activity that is happening. And I hope that in the future you will be able to get some good data. And even I have seen some papers which are published by using the Indian data, right? So you have to do some effort to find and to wrangle that data, to filter that data, to clean that data, right? But ultimately it is really useful. Even in Roorkee we see that some work, I was in part of some of the committees that was happening to use the Indian data, and that is really a good aspect. If you remember that previously, mostly the data from some of the countries, specific countries, some specific cities, for which we have not visited, we were not knowing their culture. That was helping us to do the research work in that area. But nowadays, if we are using the data that is related to our country, our cities, even we know the intricacies of those cities, and similarly for even our land like Ganga river and Himalayas. So all that data is really useful from a very important perspective, right? Because we are able to even verify many of the results by our general intelligence, that our system is working fine or not. So like another is national policy on electronics, then IT for job. These are another initiative, right? I am not going to discuss that in detail. Then there is some set of initiatives under early harvest program of government. So if you will look upon these initiatives, all these are ultimately helpful to have the digitization of society, like IT platform for messages, like government greetings to be e-greetings, biometric attendance. I think everybody is using that, and one can imagine the use of image processing, data science, machine learning in biometric attendance. I hope everybody will agree with that, right? So in that also you can do a lot of work. Wi-Fi in all the universities, secure email within the government, standardized government email design, public Wi-Fi, school bags to be e-books, school books to be e-books, SMS based weather information, disaster alert. This is again an area where the prediction, predictive analytics, machine learning tools, deep learning, data analytics, all this is really useful to have the alert systems, to have the decision support systems, to have the prediction systems related to weather, related to some disaster management, related to even Himalaya region. There was a lot of openings related to the development of projects for prediction of like even there can be landslides, there can be earthquake, right? So related to all these things. Similarly for the seashore areas, there are a lot of openings related to that prediction of like sort of storms and all these things. Then national portal for lost and found children. So all these are really useful areas where you can always explore the data science initiatives. Then if you look upon some other initiatives of Digital India, then you will find so many things. I just want to reiterate those things like Aadhaar enabled payment system, Agri Market app, which many of them are in use. Bharat Broadband Network, BHIM, Center of Excellence in IoT, certain, like there are so many things you can explore. Each one of these can give you a new direction of research for the generic research that all of us are doing, like digital occur, digital aims, direct benefit transfer, jam, koya paya, so many things. Smart city is a very big perspective. Within that you can do so many things, right? So if you look upon all these initiatives, then you will see that as a teacher, one thing we can do, that at least we can give some knowledge about these technologies which are used in these initiatives to the students. Many a times I really feel that there are some many different courses that we are teaching to students. We are teaching to students about algorithms, to data, about data structure, about cloud computing, about software engineering, about web services, right? There are so many things that we are teaching about machine learning, about data science, about deep learning, right? Security. We are teaching all these topics which are really useful in the overall system development, right? Because only one technology is not making the complete system. You are having the participation of multiple technologies, but at the end of day, the students are learning these as an individual component. So it is very important for us as well as the students to correlate the use of these technologies, to see that how they are useful to help each other, how they are interacting with each other to fulfill the overall objective, to handle the complete problem. So that sort of environment, or that sort of problems we should try to give, and even that can involve multiple faculties. Similarly, as a researcher, we can find a lot of scope for applying the different funding for the different projects, and we can also give these problems as the student projects, so that at least they have some idea about about the projects. Even imitation is also helpful, even if they are not doing any fruitful innovation, even if they are not doing any novel research. If they are trying to imitate some of the initiatives, they will be learning a lot, and sometimes they are finding some good ideas for improvement as well, or they are able to do something good in their higher studies. So that type of initiative is really useful. So, but in all these initiatives of Digital India that I was discussing, in all these things, one thing that I have uh, discussed with you initially as well, one thing is software, or as I said, this software intensive system, right? So that is really useful aspect that I want to explore from the data science perspective. If we look upon, I will discuss about the SIS, specific definition of SIS, but before that, one should be very much clear that if you will look upon these software systems, if I'm not saying specifically to software intensive systems, software systems, then in most of these software systems, data generation is happening. You are able to have a lot of data. You are having a lot of information about the participants corresponding to different systems, and where there is the use of or the generation of new data, then data science, the role of data science is coming into picture, right? If you will look upon the definition of data science, then I will discuss that. Then basically its purpose is to generate some new knowledge, some new insights, some useful analytics from the given data, right? So and that should be useful to the end user. So that is the general objective. So from that perspective, firstly, if I am starting from very basic about the about my research area in which I want to work, like you want to work, then firstly we should always try to see that where there is the type of the uses of the software, where the data generation is happening. So in those applications, you can always apply the data science to get some benefit, to get some new knowledge, right? So I will try to discuss some systems as well as the definition of software intensive system, what actually this means, and that will always give you an indication of where these applications are, where you can find the use of data science due to data generation activity. So if you will look upon the software intensive systems, then in large, by its definition, I have verbatim copied it, you can read it. Any system where software influences to a large extent the design, construction, deployment, and evolution of the system as a whole, right? So simply speaking, I have some lesser time. I have so much things to discuss with all of you, so that's why I will try to discuss the things a little bit faster. You can see that basically as per the definition as well, where the main activity, like you can see where the main activity in any in system, like any system that is in use, and in that system the dominance of the activities is by the software. Software is mostly providing you the response, the activities, the deliverable is through the softwares mostly. Then that can be called as a software intensive system. Like you can see many such examples around us, many consumer electronic devices, many of the activities which are happening around us, like even the automatic washing machine, like smart these traffic control systems. So in all these applications you will find that you are having so much use of these applications, softwares. So where there is the dominance of the software, where there is dominance of software, as far as the role of software is concerned in that application, if it is dominated by the software, then we can call it as a software intensive system. So many of the research areas are already dominated by, like telecommunication area, wireless ad hoc systems, general business applications where web services are used, embedded systems, right, for different applications, automotive or consumer electronics applications. In all these cases, you will find that software systems are highly dominating these days, right? So there is a lot of study in the dominance. I will not go into that study, and that's why the role of softwares are continuously increasing, importance of softwares are continuously increasing in the society, and that's why even the market of software is now like very important. The industries for software development are highly like they are on the higher side of like dominance. So if you will look upon the software intensive systems, then in these most of these cases, the software systems are working in integration with the in the hardware systems, normally controlled by the chips, chip design, VLSI area in the electronic science you might be knowing. So the systems in which software development or integration is dominant can be called as software intensive systems. So mostly software applications even will be within the scope of software intensive systems. So dominance here means even 100% dominance. So if it is only a software applications, then also it will be put up in this category. So in all these systems, one thing is very important, that when you are talking about the overall system development, like if I am taking the example of smart city automation, so and you are the overall manager of smart city application, then one thing is very important, that to have the overall success of this system, you should be doing an overall general modeling. You should be knowing everything. Overall architecture of the software should be known to you. Overall architecture of automation should be known to you. That is really important. Like if there are many small different applications in a big SIS like smart city, right? In that, if each of the application is fulfilling their objective, but when they are integrated to each other, then they are not able to use the outcome of the other, then the overall success cannot be achieved. So in this case also, the same thing is happening in the when you are modeling the overall smart city applications, overall systems, then the integration, then the format, then the interface of the different systems is very important. And most of the time our research, when you are even publishing the paper, we are generating some results, we are generating some outcome, that is okay, but when we are thinking about where these systems will be used, where these systems will be integrated with other, which system these systems will be integrated, then the concept of interfaces come into picture, that what type of systems will be using this system, or it will be used by the human being, what type of interface I should provide to that human being, whether it will be human computer interface, or it can be any other type of interface. It can be even a calling relationship to other system. So in that case, what outcome my system should provide, right, where I am going to deploy it. So that will ultimately put, we have to put a lot of emphasis on these concepts to design our system, all the data science related systems, all the machine learning related systems, all the security systems, and even the general softwares for the computational problems, right? So that's why we need to have an most of the time a hierarchical structure to design these systems, so that the different systems of a big SIS can be explored and can be seen that how they are interacting with each other. right? So normally these big systems are composed of smaller systems and some system elements like the smaller softwares which need not to be decomposed further. So that type of hierarchical structure is really useful to handle that problem, to handle the bigger projects, right? So one thing just I want to tell out of the box about out of the deviating from the general topic, that in SIS normally we need to remember that we have two type of components: software applications as well as hardware platforms. So whenever we are working for development of data analytics application or data science application, we should always keep in mind that where it will be useful, on which type of platform, on which type of hardware, on which type of operating system, even not related to even directly SIS, it will be useful. So many a times its implementation has to be deviated, has to be adapted corresponding to these platforms, right? So that integration is very important and should be kept into mind. Otherwise, at the end of the day, you are developing a bigger application, very good application, but it is either not compatible or not deployable, or its response time is very high, or its like interface is not okay as far as the requirement of software, requirement of usage is concerned. So all these issues should be taken care of when you are generating the general model of your software at the initial stage only, right? So in this way, you can see that this is one of very simple example in the case of a smart city problem, which we published in one of the IEEE journal. Like if it is a city tour planner service with IoT infrastructure, even in this case, you will find there are many small applications which are happening. Just to show you that to develop an overall application related to any problem, you will find many small systems, right? It's not that only by using single system you are able to complete the system development. Even in this case, if you are developing a simple city tour planner service, then you will find that it will be using not only the software for event management, software for weather information, software for the shortest route finding, software for booking the hotels and all that. So there are so many things that will happen. So smaller applications for even sensor and IoT based data tracking. So for even for very simple applications, you need to take care of so many small systems. So that's why it is very important to, when you are developing some application, to see that where it will be useful. Sometimes some algorithms that you are designing, they are useful in one context and not in others. So then in those cases, normally the question is that the examiners or the evaluator will say in this domain, in this particular area, in this particular problem, this will not be useful. Then we are at the same moment we are puzzled, like how it happened. Like my algorithm, I was thinking that will be universally useful, or I have not given thought to that yes, in this area it will not be useful, in this domain it will not be useful. So that's why if I am confining my problem that yes, in this particular domain, in this particular environment, in this particular problem, my algorithm is really useful, my application is really useful, then we are at least putting up our perspective in better way, right? So that's why from all these things you can see that there are so many challenges, but one related to this course, data generation, is one of the biggest challenge. Even from these all these aspects, you are getting a lot of data, and then again the analysis of data can generate a lot of new information. If you are applying the data analytics, you can get a lot of new insights, you can apply the machine learning, you can generate a lot of new applications from this data, like weather prediction, traffic prediction, prediction of traveling time based on the time of the day, traffic management. So there are so many applications that you can do with the help of this type of data, right? So now I will discuss with you about some of very basic concepts, but not simply very basic. I am just trying to give you the practical idea about the data science. So you can see that if you will look upon the term data science, right? Data and science. So that basically this term is saying that whatever we are doing in this domain, that is oriented to the data, right? That is the outcome is also oriented to the data. type of data, quality of data, right? And in this data science domain, we are trying to take decisions, we are trying to perform activities based upon the data that we have in hand, right? So basically, even if you look upon the human behavior, the nature of human being, then you will see that the human being is also most of the time taking decisions based on the data, by analyzing the data, right? You will see that in day-to-day life, when we are taking any decision, when we are generating some outcome in the form of a decision, then normally what is happening, that we know something about the background of problem, we know from our past experiences that yes, at that time this type of decision was successful, or if that was the situation, this is the, that should be the decision, because we have faced those type of situations in past. So same thing is happening in the data science domain as well, right? Like, you know that yes, as a human being, we normally what we do, yes, I know that if this is the situation, then I should decide in this way. This is the role of a manager as well. So in those cases, what you are doing, you are ultimately using your brain to dig upon that past data, right? Historical experiences that you are seeing, and then trying to take the decision in the current situation. Same thing is happening in this domain. Similar activities are happening. That experience can be called as the historical data. That data you have, from that data you are trying. This is one of the area of data science. From that you are trying to generate any pattern. That yes, if this is the area, if this is the input, or if this is the data, then in the past the decision was taken. So in the current scenario also, I should take this type of decision. Right. So if you will look upon the verbatim definition of data science or data driven science, you can see on the screen, basically data science is helping you in that activity that I have specified, right? If the data is very small, then human brain is able to handle it and take the decision. But if data is very large, then our grasping capability, cognitive capability of human being is limited. I cannot remember and take decision based on so many different perspectives, and my decisions will be just based upon last 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 uh, decisions that I have taken, or I know in the past, dependent upon my memory. But if I want to take more precise decisions, and I want to take care of hundreds or thousands or lakhs of the decisions that were taken in the past, that has happened in the past, then I want to use some automated tools, some scientific methods, some scientific processes, and some implementation by using the software, right? So in those cases, data science is coming into picture. So in these cases, data can be in any form. Different forms are there. Structural or unstructured data can be there. Overall, on that data, we will try to apply some scientific methods, some processes to generate some new results, to generate some new information, new insights, to extract some knowledge from that data. So that's why that data science is not just involving the computer science, it's involving the mathematics as well, statistics, the knowledge of programming languages, knowledge of software development, knowledge of machine learning, as well as some perspectives, some aspects, some new aspects related to big data as well. So the data science is covering so many things, or you need to be at least aware about all these things to work properly in the data science area, right? Or you need to collaborate with the different peoples in these areas to work upon. So as machine learning is one of very important perspective, which is highly researched upon these days in the data science area. Basically, it is helping you. It's generating the it's data machine learning is trying to help you to generate those patterns for which I am talking about, right? So the machine learning algorithms are mostly data driven. So instead of having some set of computations, they try to learn from the data, right? So just by using the data, these algorithms are driven, they are working, and they are telling the answer that yes, this should be the outcome. It is unlike, that is different than the traditional algorithms of computer science, where we are trying to put some input, and the process is implemented with the help of some steps, and then by using that input, the output is generated, right? So in this case, the software that you have implemented using machine learning, it's trying to improve, it's trying to learn, it's trying to basically teach itself to take the better decision using the new data that you are providing or the data that you are providing, right? It's very near to the machine human intelligence. I will compare it with the human behavior, and that will make you the things very clear, right? So there are different features of machine learning that I am just skipping, that I think might have been covered by the previous faculty members already. So you can always see, you might have learned already about the different activities happening in the data science and machine learning, and these are very much related to the human being as well. So I just want to convey that so that it is easy for you to correlate the things and to understand the things. If I am talking about the association rule mining or association activities happening in this domain, then you can see that is very similar to the human being. Human being also many a times knowing about the associations. Like if you might have seen the applications of associations in the machine learning area, then you might have seen that in many e-commerce websites, when you are trying to search or add to cart some of the products, then at the same time there will be some advertisement or some indications that when the people purchase this product, this was also purchased, or the products related to that item will be advertised. So this isn't it very similar to the human behavior? As a human being, if I am a shopkeeper, and if from the shopkeeper, if I am purchasing something, then shopkeeper is able to at least guess that yes, this person is trying to purchase like one item, then yes, this will also be interested in this type of item. Like if I am trying, very famous examples you can find in the machine learning books related to this area. Like if I am trying to like search bread, then I might also be interested in butter, right? Might not be good in Indian perspective, but in from the Western perspective, bread and butter is associated. From Indian perspective, bread might be associated with besan as well, कि चलो bread पकोड़े बनाने हैं instead of uh, I think bread butter is less famous. So there are so many things related to the associations that the human being is also able to take, just due to the type of associations that have happened in the past. From that that type of association might happen in the future as well. Similarly, another topic of pattern recognition and pattern generation in machine learning is also very much related to the human analogy. Like as a human being, we are normally able to generate a lot of patterns, and even in the past in mathematics also, in like even 12th class also, and in analogy also, in analytical problems also, you might have worked upon the patterns. So like if you might have seen the problems, like if this is, these three values are there, fourth is this one, in the second also three values are given, fourth is this one, and for the third pattern, third example where three values are given, what will be the fourth value? So that type of problems you might have handled in the past as well. So that is the basic fundamental of patterns in this case also. Another example you might have seen about the learnings. Learning is very important thing, and pattern generation is also involving that learning only. I can give you a very simple example of learning. Like you might have seen that as a human being, even our brain is learning all the time. Like I can give a very simple example. Like if I am like putting some like there is let us consider you have a pen, right? And by using that pen, okay, by using that pen, you are making some noise. I hope you are able to understand. Like there is a pen, tick tick wala pen jo hota hai, like you are making some noise by using that pen. So in that case, what is happening? We are able to know, even if we are not looking upon that person who is ticking on the pen, we are able to know that this noise is of some pen, and by using that pen, somebody is making the noise, right? So like if I am thumbing on the table, like tick 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 tick, right? So we are able to know, even if I am not looking upon the person, I am able to know that this is the noise of putting some noise from the table. What is the reason for that? Because I am habitual of doing that since many years. since many years we are hearing that noise. So I even was interacting with one of the ENT surgeon on this topic about a years back, and they were saying that like our ears, they are sending signals, both of the ears are sending signals at the same time, and our brain is trying to understand from the previous experiences. It has some signals embedded within that, and it is able to recognize that this is the noise of that particular activity. So in that sense, some pattern is generated in our brain. Similarly, in the machine learning algorithms also, we are trying to generate those patterns from the past such activities. You can understand this concept of machine learning and some embedded concepts within the machine learning by this example. Like if there is some person who is having some problem in hearing capability is less, right? Then in those cases, mostly the person is not able to recognize that what is the noise. That noise is of tick tick pen or some from somewhere else the noise is coming. The person might be able to know that there is some noise, but not able to recognize that what is the source of noise or from why this noise is happening, from where the source is occurring. It is the pen noise or it is some other noise. So it is due to the reason that person is not getting complete information, or data is very less, right? Data is very less, right? So that the same thing is happening in the machine learning also. If there is some missing information, complete information is not available, or some attributes are missing in your data, then the predictions will be inaccurate, prediction will not be good, right? So same thing is happening with the human being as well. So what I want to convey, try to correlate these concepts with the human being, and you will easily find that these are very normal concepts. It's not so much different, right? So basically I am just trying to tell you, from the screen you can see that it's the general difference between the traditional and machine learning programming. In traditional programming, you have some data and some program you are building. That program is working on that data and output is generated. In the machine learning, it is a little bit different. You have some data, you know that corresponding to that data, this should be the output, right? Then your algorithm is trying to generate a mapping, a correlation corresponding to the data and output, input and output, I will say, and is generating the output in the form of a model. So then in the further work, like you can see, the model is used to do the prediction, right? So this is the general life cycle, like collecting the data, then data wrangling, then analysis of data, then training the algorithm, then testing the algorithm and deployment. It's a general process that you are following in different works on machine learning area. In data wrangling, there is so much work, so much scope for the research, like data cleansing, data enrichment, right? Or so handling the missing values, right? Feature reduction. So many things are happening in this particular step. So collecting the data, I think it's very much known. Most of the time we have the available data, and most of the time we have to work upon collection of the new data, data wrangling, filtering, cleaning, analyzing it is the second step. So in the analysis also, we are having so many models for data analysis. So it's so many works are happening even each of the step, right? Training the algorithm, for training there are so many different models, testing, right? Then deployment. So there are some of these libraries, Python libraries, I just want to tell that these are also really helpful in performing many of these operations, and even the data visualization, like Seaborn library, Matplotlib, scikit-learn, pandas. So these are some of the libraries, right? So I will not go into the detail of these types of learning because the time is very limited. I will just tell you, I am just keeping these different type of learning models because already you might be knowing. I even see that k-nearest neighbor, I have taken an example, it's very near to the human intuition. These are some of the data visualization tools that can be really useful. Tableau, you might be knowing, this is highly used these days, right? So that's all for today's discussion, and we will be happy to interact. Even you can email me if there is any question or anything in your mind on which we want to collaborate. That will be really useful. And there are a lot of researchers in your host team as well. And even I can see that many of the parents, participants are actively working in these research areas. So all of you, I feel, should try to collaborate from this team, and you can get some good results. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation and giving such a nice session, nice lecture on this topic. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Okay, my best wishes.
Okay. Okay. Bye.
Should I leave, ma'am? Should I leave, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I will talk to you, sir, on phone.
Not a problem. Thank you. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you, sir.
My
Thank
best
you very
wishes to all of you. Okay.
Thank you, sir. For participants, we will be meeting at 12 o'clock. Next session is by again Dipti ma'am. She will be giving some hands-on. So we will be meeting after a 15 minutes break off. And next session is at 12 o'clock.